As people start rolling in, I want to welcome you to Monday Night Reading. If you've never joined us before, what this is the first Monday of the month, typically, not this month, because the first Monday we were all still too stuck in holiday land to be able to do it. But normally on the first Monday of the month, save for a summer hiatus, we host a reading for nonfiction authors. In publishing, I have had my feet in both worlds, and fiction authors always get readings. So last year it occurred to me, hey, what about nonfiction authors? They should get readings too. So that's how this was born. I chose Monday night because when I was a playwright, Monday night readings were a thing and it was a very big deal. So I thought I would name it after that. This is how we work tonight. We have two authors from Top 3 Book Workshop, which is my 14-week program for nonfiction authors. Keitha and Francesca, hey, give a little wave. And then what I'm going to do is introduce them, ask a little bit about their book. They will read an excerpt from it. We'll have another little brief conversation about it, and then move on to the next author. What's so interesting about tonight is that we have both Keitha and Francesca are working on memoir in a different way. And also these are works in progress, which means these are unedited work. We often have authors who have been published and they read their shiny excerpts. So please understand that Keitha and Francesca this is an in-progress piece. So it requires quite a lot of courage to share this. A quick little note, one of the rules we have in Top 3 Book Workshop, we apply to Monday Night Reading, and that is the only person who gives constructive criticism in that class is little old me and no one else, which means that in this reading, we encourage you to refrain from sharing your critical thoughts and to be generous in your positive feedback. This is no small feat to share in progress work. If you do have questions, you can feel free to ask the questions though, if you have them. So please put them in the chat. And the last programming note, in case you have to beg off later, is our next Monday Night Reading is, I believe, Laura, I want to say February 5th. 6th. February 6th, and it is with Jada Sneller, who recently wrote She Builds. And we're excited to have her come talk about her book that was released last year. Okay, so first we're going to start with Keitha Bennett, who again is an alum of Top 3 Book Workshop. And Laura, I would love for you to introduce Keitha.
I would love to introduce the fantastic Keitha Bennett. Keitha Bennett has taken every opportunity for grand mistakes to be made available to her in her lifetime as a deadhead, single mother, and IT professional for various Fortune 500 companies over the past 25 years, and has discovered an effective healing process to the many tragedies, inherited traumas, and life lessons learned along the way. Originally from the Bronx, Keitha left home at 16 and lived on the road following the Grateful Dead, moved back to New York where she waitressed as a single mother, and then found her way into a technology career in 1999. Good year for it. Leveraging her unique experiences, she's sharing what she's learned about personal transformation through self-discovery, healing past traumas, and coming to be who you really are to reach your potential, all in her forthcoming book. Today, Keitha is enjoying her colorful life from South Florida with her dog, where she can be found working on her next project or trying to make friends with the wildlife in her yard. And I'll put how you can connect with Keitha in the chat. AJ?
Thank you, Laura. I love that bio, Keitha. That's fantastic. So Keitha, you know, in Top 3 Book Workshop, we talk about the book fundamentals. So I would love for you to share with everybody here your book fundamentals, which are, who are you writing your book for? What is your core message to that reader? And what is your promise to them?
Okay, so my reader is a professional who's dissatisfied with the current status quo, but unsure of what the next step is to be more fulfilled in life, particularly with regards to their work. And my core promise Our core message is contorting yourself to fit in never works. True confidence comes from remembering who you are and what you love. And then my core promise is by the end of this book, you will learn that it is possible to come to terms with your past, have confidence to be where you are now, and to create the future you want.
Love that. I love hearing you share that. And look, can you set up the excerpt for everybody about from where you're pulling the content today?
Sure. So I edited chapter 2. So in the first chapter, it starts out I'm in Crotonville, which is GE's training center. And I go to a class there, really an excellent class, but at the end of it, I get some feedback. And that feedback is that I'm unpolished. And it sends me into a tailspin, which really, I start questioning everything about myself, how to behave, how to still be myself. And I kind of freaked out. Like it was like, borderline nervous breakdown. And then I went to another class at Crotonville where it was special. This instructor is my coach today, but he brought in completely different techniques and for self-hypnosis, things like that. And one of these techniques was to banish that critical voice that was constantly yelling in my head. The one I'd get up before people and it would be like, everything is wrong, like just constant criticism. So in a quick 20-minute exercise, we banished that voice from my head and it never came back. And it completely changed everything for me in the sense that I was like, well, wait a minute. Who am I anyway? Like, why did I even care? Why did that just throw me like that? Considering my life, considering I grew up in the Bronx. Of course, I'm not polished. Like, are you kidding? But at the same time, so in chapter 2, I'm examining my values and where I come from and kind of connecting the dots of to bring everybody up to the current times.
Okay. I'm excited. This is probably my favorite chapter of your book, actually. So we don't get the whole thing, everybody, because that would take too long to read. But please settle in. You'll notice in the chat that people who are part of my author community will type in the chat something that resonates with them as they hear it. So be encouraged to join in with that, please. We do save the chat for the authors, and it's really lovely for them to see that, especially on days when we don't feel like writing. So please join in if you feel inspired. All right, Keitha, here you go.
All right, and thank you everyone for coming. And also, feel free to just relax and turn off your screen. Like you don't need to be there. I'm just going to read. So I just hope you can enjoy it. Oh, and just to set up the chapter, I'm going to first be sharing some experiences from when I was young. And then I'm going to pause and I'm going to go to what's current time in the story, but it's actually early 2015, but I'll let you know. Okay. When I was 10, I had a plan to run away from home that was sure to work. I had it all figured out and only needed to convince my friend to come. As an aspiring woman of the world, I figured it would be easy enough for us to take our bikes on a road trip and sneak into hotel lounges to nap as needed. I had stayed in hotels with my parents on business trips at least twice, and it seemed like there were plenty buffet spreads around and no one would think anything of us helping ourselves. There wouldn't be a reason for the hotel staff to pay attention to us if we didn't cause any problems, and it probably wouldn't occur to them that we were runaways. I tried to convince my friend, but she had her doubts and wasn't into it, so I waited. Maybe it started when I was 7 and went to a birthday party at Van Clorton Park in the Riverdale section of the Bronx. I didn't really know any of the other kids at the party and was shy, standing off to the side and observing more than participating. The park was basically a large field for playing different sports with horse stables in one small area. As the other kids and I lined up for rides, we watched as the trainer used a lead to guide the horses one by one around a small fenced-in circle with their child passengers. I was a little scared to be so close to the horses and was careful not to stand behind one to avoid getting kicked, a warning that had stuck in my mind. but I easily put aside my fears and awe of these beautiful, powerful, wild animals. They're so large, and I was curious to understand their loud snorts or why they seem to have one eye on their immediate surroundings while scanning the horizon with the other. Horses are out of place in the city, whether they're pulling carriages in Central Park or have uniformed police mounted on their backs. They always seem a little sad, too, clopping along on the pavement with every move controlled by someone weighing them down with saddles and straps, blinders and bridles. At least the elephants and camels I had ridden at the Bronx Zoo seemed to get some space to themselves after the zoo closed, and some privacy and some more natural surroundings. I was late to the party and one of the last to line up, so had plenty of time to watch as one kid after another slowly and rhythmically went around the circle, waving to their friends and family for pictures. The line seemed to last forever. Once most of the other kids had gone and the party turned into an ad hoc game of chase or taunting from the sidelines, I felt out of place and guilty, like I was holding up the next phase of the party, the girl who was only
Okay.
because our dads worked together.
Yeah, yeah, whatever works for you.
Trainers were checking their watches too and had brought out another horse, a gray Appaloosa, to double up and move it along faster. Finally, my turn came. I would ride the new horse. There was something about her. She had a spark, a hint of the wild burned in her eyes like she saw something very different from the rest of us. Just put your foot in the stirrup here and I'll help you get up the rest of the way, the trainer instructed me. I was too little to get my foot up that high, but used the stirrup to push myself up after I was lifted to hoist myself onto the horse. I looked up from my new vantage point. Where are the reins? I asked. There are no reins. This is an English saddle, and reins are used for Western saddles. He pointed to a lump in front of me. This is the horn. You hold on to this. How does the horse know which way to turn without reins? He flashed me a somewhat condescending smile, which annoyed me. I only wanted to be prepared, but as a kid, it's hard to be taken seriously. I'll be guiding the horse and she knows where to go. Now, when you're ready, give a little kick with the heel of your foot and she'll start moving forward. I had more questions and was a little disappointed this wasn't going to be as I had imagined, but did as I was told and gave a gentle kick into the horse's side. We started to plod along in the fenced-in circle. Something happened. I don't know if it was a sound or what, but the energy shifted and suddenly my body popped up and out of the saddle. I caught on to the first thing I could, which was the horse's mane, and instinctively grabbed it with both hands as the rest of me went airborne. With my fists clenched so tightly, my nails were digging into the palms of my hands. We were off. My horse had jumped the low barrier, gotten away from the trainer, and now we were tearing across the park. It was terrifying and exciting at the same time. I felt so alive and was barely aware of the saddle horn rhythmically slamming into my chest as I bounced horizontally, hovering over the horse, somehow managing to hang on, my grip on her mane being the only thing keeping me connected and from toppling off. As we approached the edge of the park, bordered by cement streets and the entrance to the Henry Hudson Parkway, she slowed down and then came to a stop. After scanning the area to make sure there weren't any other options, she gave up with an exasperated snort and turned back toward the people. Our moment was over as adults came running, shouting, and concerned about the whole thing. I was in tears, some of it from the pain of the saddle horn, but also from the excitement and being so full of so many feelings at once. As I returned to join the group, the other kids were jealous, and they complained about their little baby rides compared to mine. I felt like a celebrity, but in the back of my mind, I was still in the moment of peak excitement, fantasizing about how we could keep going, running far, far away from them, from the city and all the people in it, somewhere else where we belong. My time eventually came. On my 16th birthday, I executed on a plan to break free and find my own way. It was fall of 1989 and the Grateful Dead were playing the Meadowlands in New Jersey. I'd gone to a few shows at Madison Square Garden the year before and immediately felt connected to the scene. I belonged there with the other sparkly-eyed and smiling hippies. I'd been going to high school, at least sometimes, but school didn't seem relevant, especially when there were so many other exciting things to do. I skipped class a lot and explored New York with my friends instead. A teenager with a little money in her pocket has a lot of options. I went to see the Dead at the Meadowlands, and on the final night, I brought my bag, a change of clothes, $20, and a plan to go all in, descending into the chaotic and exciting circus of my first tour. This discombobulated gang of misfits immediately became my family, a spectacle of personified collective consciousness looking for entertainment, swept up in a wave of organized chaos and disorganized crime. Colorful and cautiously welcoming to newcomers, but once I made it through any initial shields of judgment and suspicion, I was in for life. I loved being a part of this traveling community of freaks and weirdos, and even today remain connected to that world. A Deadhead sticker on a car or t-shirt fills me with an instant sense of solidarity and connection with friends I haven't met yet. Camping in the arena parking lots during Dead shows was mostly tolerated back then, although the end was in sight. Technicolor tie-dyed and batik blankets would be laid out with all sorts of crafts and wares for sale in the ad hoc marketplace, along with people walking through the crowd carrying armfuls of t-shirts, stickers, and handmade jewelry. Calls for ice cold beer, vegetarian burritos, and a more subtle 1 for 3, 2 for 5 interplayed with the music from car radios and a drum circle in the distance, a cacophony of sounds melting into a song that was more of a vibe than a noise. Hippie chicks wearing skirts and bells and handmade dresses, guys in tie-dyes and Guatemalan pants. Nothing matched, yet it all did in its own way, with an excess of color and texture, patterns and friendly knowing smiles if someone's gaze fixated on it all for too long. The ubiquitous long hair and blonde dreadlocks reminiscent of the scraggly sun-worn looks of outdoor cats. The scent of patchouli oil and sandalwood incense, some meat on a grill wafting through the air. Dogs darted in and out of the crowds, nomadic like their people and focused on staying with the pack. Drum circles would form with people wildly dancing, feeding off and into the energy of the moment. It was incomprehensible in a lot of ways, but I knew I was home and these were my people. I held on, following the tour down the East Coast to the last shows in Miami, catching rides with different people along the way and making new friends. Miami was the last stop on the tour for the season, and some people were going to the Fantasy Fest in Key West. Curious about the costumes and wanting to explore the tropical fantasy land of South Florida, I decided to go too. I didn't think through how I was going to make money or otherwise take care of myself outside of the parking lot economy, but didn't concern myself with those kind of details. Instead, trusted that things would work out. Key West is paradise, and although there were some challenges, I fell right into the laid-back, easy living vibe. We camped on the different beaches known by their mile marker names. The weather allowed for it, and it didn't cost anything which matched my budget. One night, I was sleeping on an ocean overlook. I woke up being eaten alive by sand fleas or mosquitoes and sat up to bat them away. As I opened my eyes and took in the hazy spectacle of day coming to meet the night, everything else fell away. Above me was a dark and velvety sky full of stars. So many stars. Growing up in the city, I only saw skies like that at the planetarium. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon, gently lighting up the water as the waves glittered and flowed. Overhead shades of pinks and purples, then wisps of blue as the morning sky transitioned from the starry night directly above. Dolphins were leaping in the distance, playing along the horizon as seabirds flew above them. The October air was warm and balmy, the scent of seagrass and sweet-smelling flowers wafting through the air. It seemed unreal, like I had passed through from reality to a spirit world and was looking straight into the face of God. And then here, I'm going to transition to current time, which is early in 2015. As I return home from Crotonville to my small but efficient apartment in Mamaroneck, Jerry looks up from the spot where he had been sleeping and meows a creaky hello, or maybe issues a complaint about how I've been gone for days and woke him up. Jerry is a 20-year-old cat, closing in on 21, and nothing like the young feral outdoor cat I brought home as a teeny tiny kitten. When he came into our lives, I was pregnant with Kyle, my third child, and Dave and I were deeply entangled in the love and drama of our relationship. We had recently moved from an apartment in the city to a condo in the suburbs of Danbury, Connecticut, and our family was ready for a new furry friend, thinking my eldest daughter might enjoy having a kitten to snuggle and to focus her attention on when the new baby came. My Aunt Mary looks after her McLean Avenue neighborhood stray cats and puts out food in her yard for them. She also carefully traps them to get the cats fixed and vaccinated before releasing them back into their wild homes where Yonkers meets the Bronx. Jerry's mother, Jezebel, showed up one day looking for something to eat, pregnant and still a kitten herself. My aunt arranged a nice nesting space for her on the indoor porch and helped care for her small litter of kittens once they were born. But Jezebel's feral wild nature wouldn't allow her to settle into this new indoor domestic life. Nor was she ready to be a mother and seemed confused and sometimes irritated by her hungry and needy kittens. She wasn't feeding or grooming them consistently, and when she had had enough, started to wander off, disappearing for days at a time. Mary wanted to get these kittens into new homes as soon as possible. We were happy to take one off her hands. When we got this little gray tiger-striped kitten, he fit in the palm of my hand and couldn't have been any more adorable. We named him Jerry, after Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead. But moving a wild cat from the city to the suburbs didn't turn him into a domesticated house cat any more than it turned me into a dutiful housewife. I tried to clean him up and contain him just like I cut my dreadlocks, clipped coupons, and dressed in clothes from the mall. But costumes and a change of scenery weren't enough to quiet our burning desire for adventure and taking risks. It may even have had the opposite effect, provoking a need to shake things up just to see what happens. Jerry is a feral cat and proved it again and again. He'd scatter his food all over the floor, eat voraciously while on high alert, and then tear around the place like a maniac. Sometimes he would be so full of energy and so worked up that he'd propel himself up a wall to launch an attack. This little cat terrorized the entire family and was ready to pounce at any time. No barefoot was safe. He needed to be free, wild, and outdoors as often as possible to release some of his energy into the world. Somehow he fended for himself, making up for his small stature with a big dose of crazy, always looking a little rough and never having learned the refined skills of domesticated cats, such as grooming himself. Jerry came home at night and to eat, but mostly he wandered the neighborhoods where we lived, stalking conflict and ever vigilant in the violent world he was at least partially responsible for. I wasn't ready for any of the life I had created for myself, despite spending the better part of the 90s pregnant, breastfeeding, and on diaper duty. I wasn't ready to be a mother. I knew nothing about being a Connecticut suburban housewife trying to keep up with everything that comes with having children. But doing what I needed to do, I kept going and tried to figure things out, even as I complicated and suffered through it. It's all I knew. The same summer Jerry the cat joined our family, I passed my driving test and upgraded my under 21 permit to a driver's license. Not long after, I had an unfortunate and newsworthy car accident, which sadly took one of our children, ushering in a new era of devastation and turmoil. I was emotionally debilitated, but pressed on anyway, trying to keep up the facade, convinced I could find my way to and pull off normal, provided I kept my and the emotions of those around me under control. I got a job at a restaurant waiting tables, got my good enough diploma, my GED, and used these resources to enroll in Western Connecticut State University, where I took classes for a semester. Meanwhile, I found myself pregnant again, even as my marriage fell apart in slow motion. We tried to save it by changing the scene, first by moving to Yonkers near Dave's family. Then I went back to Connecticut 5 years later to Bethel this time, San's husband, but with full custody of the cat. Jerry grew into a tough little street cat and valued his freedom above all else. Truly fearless, he used up at least 5 of his lives that I know of anyway. His wounds were generally on or near his face, a strong sign that he was facing his attacker head on if not the instigator. Only once, when he dragged himself home with a broken pelvis, did he look like he might have been trying to get away from the car that likely swiped him. I wonder if he thought he had caught his horse and was headed on to his next adventure before realizing 3,000 pounds of motorized metal on wheels was more than he could handle. By the time we left Bethel and moved to Mamaroneck, back in New York, Jerry was slowing down and beat up, his days numbered as an outdoor cat. The kids were older and having transitioned from waiting tables to working in IT at the turn of the century, my job was now a viable career rather than an assortment of gigs I would hustle up and string together. During the day, I worked for Pace University as a systems admin and technical instructor, and I managed to cobble together some workshops that I would teach at night for extra cash, which was never really extra. One of the benefits of working for the university was being able to go to school tuition free. So I also worked on my bachelor's degree part-time, eventually getting a BS in telecommunications. The apartment we moved to is in a more populated area near Boston Post Road, and the logistics for a cat to come and go as he pleased wasn't going to happen. I tried to find a way and even put a leash on him to see if that might work, but Jerry would just flop down on his side and refuse to move while psychically conveying to me that he would die before allowing me to lead him around on a leash. Humiliation. Keeping him inside was no small decision, but the alternative was too gruesome. Jerry was not at all happy with being contained. He spent his time focused on the windows, watching the birds, trees, anything that moved in the world of outside, occasionally glancing back at me with contempt. But in time, he mellowed out. Perhaps as he learned to appreciate the safety and predictability of being an indoor cat. After all, he was an aging old man and not as agile as he once was. He developed what seemed like dementia, forgetting he didn't like people, and now looks for attention, sidling up close and wanting me to pet him. It's hard to trust him after all these years, and sometimes the fire in his eyes ignite when he's triggered, but that part of him has mostly faded away. These days, he is a completely different cat than that palm-sized toe tormentor. Possibly blind in his one glassy eye, he's mostly found curled up and sleeping on the daybed in the living room, which is where I find him now. He's watching me with his one good eye and rolls over to his back to be pet like a dog. I cautiously stroke him and give him some love, attempting to smooth out some of his rumpled fur going in every direction. He makes a creaking sound as he opens his mouth and speaks a soundless meow. Jerry, you're so unpolished. I shake my head and smile. As if in response, a cloud of dander floats up from where I disturbed it, immediately making my eyes water and my throat itch. Jerry reaches out for a big stretch while laying on his side and curls backwards into a banana shape, followed by a half-hearted attempt to clean one of his paws until he loses his train of thought, closes his eyes, and gets back to his nap.
Yes. Oh, Jerry, the unpolished cat. Magnificent, 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 magnificent. Just, I'm so impressed with you. I'm so impressed with you. I'm so impressed with you. You've just grown so much as a writer, and I can't wait for people to see this entire book. That's just an excerpt from one chapter, y'all. So Keitha, I love to ask this question. What is the change you hope to see in the world through your book?
So what I learned throughout the book is the importance of having a big and meaningful life. Right? We only get one. So if you're just focused on your work or focused on, tomorrow and today, you're not always on the future. You're not going to be able to enjoy now. But the change I'm hoping to make is for people to find that in their own lives and find what they need, whether it's a need to do something creative outside of work, whether it's, really getting into nature, just living big and living as big as they can, because, you get one shot.
So Keitha, tell us where can people connect with you so they can hear about when the book will be available?
So I have a website which has nothing but my face on it and a button to email me. It's
That's all you need.
keithabennett.com.
That's all you need.
I will get that done. I just haven't had a chance to do that. And then, of course, there's the LinkedIn and Facebook if we're connected there. My link that, yeah, I'm everywhere.
I do encourage you, you won't remember this, so now go on to Keitha's site, sign up for her mailing list, so that way you will know when she actually has a book you can order. This is a work in progress. So if you want to hear more about that, you'll get a surprise in your inbox one day. Guess what? My book is going to be published, and here's the date. Keitha, thank you so much for your willingness to tackle very deeply vulnerable topics in your book, and also for your courage in sharing everything with us tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity, AJ. And you're just an amazing writing coach. For anybody on this call who doesn't, AJ wrote Write a Must Read, which is her technique. But I was lucky enough to take a workshop with her, and she's just been I can't believe how much my work has been elevated since we started together. So thank you for that. And
Well,
thank
that was
Laura too.
Yes, Laura Stone. I thank you. That was very nice of you to share. But I really want to stress for you and for Francesca this commitment that you both have to craft and to realizing your vision. So that's all you, Keitha. It's all you. Thank you again.